Look, you don't want to miss our first episode of our LinkedIn podcast series, Bigger Than You Think. Excited to share with you that our first guest is an author, a world traveler who's visited 60 plus countries. In our conversation, Robin Moriarty explores what it means to be a woman living life on her terms. There are so many talented women in the world, and today's guest is a modern-day Renaissance woman. Known for her joyful presence, Faith Wilkerson is easily one of the top 5 women leaders blossoming in Richmond, Virginia. Her Unlocking RVA events serve as a social hub for men and women of all shades to come together throughout the city. Subscribe, share with others, and enjoy today's show. Welcome to another episode of the Somebody's Son podcast, where biting your tongue is never allowed. Young men battle with the pressures of manhood every day. Each episode, we tackle topics that focus on worth, actions, and relationships. Our goal is simple: help men win the war with themselves.
How many houses you said? 6?
6 what? In the cul-de-sac, yeah.
And 5 are the original owners.
Mm-hmm. Everyone's been there. They built from the ground up.
Or at least family members.
No, they built from the ground up. I'm the only new, everyone in there are the original owners. Because no one, that was a retirement community. Everyone in there moved there when they retired. So they didn't have any children that was growing up. There's never been, I was always the only kid when I would come visit my grandparents.
Wow.
I would be in the cul-de-sac by myself jumping rope. You see the picture I posted? I gotta show you. When I'm literally in the same cul-de-sac by myself because there was no other kids in the cul-de-sac. So I'm playing by myself. So my dad was living in Atlanta. And so this is where we would meet to, see each other and stuff like that because my parents are divorced. And so it'd just be me. And so, everyone in that community is retired. So all their kids were already adults by the time they moved there.
Wow.
So like I said, I'm the youngest thing. I'm 38. Everyone in there is in their 60s and 70s.
But you and the Asian family are the next trend for your cul-de-sac.
Yeah, and the Asian family, they'll probably continue to push it down the pipeline because, again, there's a lot of kids. They have college-age people. So that'll probably be a family house that'll keep moving forward. And then again, once my one neighbor, he's going to give his house to his nephew, but his nephew's currently living in Atlanta. I don't know if he's going to want to move to Richmond, Virginia, but and in the other house, they'll probably all sell because their kids have already purchased their own home because they're full-on adults. So at some point, the cul-de-sac will change. I'm not going to be excited about it because it'll probably be someone I hate, but...
I love your optimism.
Because there's one kid that lives next door. He's still living at home. He's in his 20s. I don't trust him. We already got 3 cars that are abandoned that are just cooling out. What are the cars there for, sir? What's their purpose? And I know your mom is the only reason why there's only 3 and not more. And I'm afraid when she passes that we're going to see an onslaught of cars that are just there that don't have any real rhyme or reason. I also know that, he already smoking weed outside, which I don't have a problem with. I'm just gotta keep an eye on you, kid. Gotta keep an eye on you because I feel like you're gonna, change the vibe. We're a quiet neighborhood here. We don't pull in the cul-de-sac playing bass. We don't do any of that. We're in the county, okay? We don't even have street lights, okay? So come in real quiet, park your car in your garage, and let's move on.
Your pops lived in Atlanta.
My dad still lives in Atlanta, yeah.
Still lives in Atlanta.
So he left New York and went to Atlanta. My mom's in Newport News. And I have he just turned 26-year-old brother. So they both are Newport News.
What made you double down on Richmond?
Double down. So I came here in 2000 to go to school, to go to VCU, and I never left. And I doubled down because it was really pretty much the only place I had lived this long. So I lived in New York. I was born and raised there. But then my mom remarried. My stepfather joined the Army. And because of that, I switched schools every year until we actually got to Newport News. So I finished out my last 3 years of high school there and then came to Richmond to go to school. And so, when I did my bachelor's, I said, okay, finally decided I wanted to work in higher education. And so I decided to do my master's at VCU. And at that point, I was like, okay, I'm here. I like it here. I liked having memory bases. I remember when. To be able to say, I remember when Northside was. I didn't have that in any place I had ever lived because in a year we were gone. And I just never know what happened beforehand.
That's where I met you.
VCU?
VCU.
Yes, that is where you
and you, you were the... I hope you don't take this in a bad way, but it was you and Miss Beverly Walker were the only two leaders. I think Kelly was either on her way out of VCU, but already
because you met me pre-alpha, right? Or post-alpha?
I met you pre-alpha.
Okay, I thought some of you don't have that luxury, but
I met you pre-alpha.
Okay,
we don't see that a lot. that you
I remember Miss Walker too.
Yeah.
Miss Beverly.
So that was
Walker.
it. Yeah, it was me, her, and Kelly. And then Kelly was working over in new student orientation. Is where she was. Oh, you got it. Look at you. That was like some Matrix stuff. You did.
I saw it too. I saw it over here. Right,
but it was like to float away. But that's that. Listen, that right there.
There you go.
Keep him on the payroll. Okay.
But yeah, like I just remember we talked with Terry and talked about like not seeing examples of you, like of people that look like you as educators. But I distinctly remember you in Miss Walker.
Yeah, but that was the difference, right? So we weren't in your classrooms. We were extracurricular, folks, which there's plenty of staff of color at VCU. That was never the issue. It's when you guys got into the classroom, at least working in the multicultural office, that was one of the bigger complaints we heard from our students was that, and even me as a former student, I did 3 degrees at VCU and I only had, I believe, 4 faculty of color. And that's over like a 10-year span of...
Are you still at VCU?
I still work at VCU, and now I'm within the School of Education. And so I oversee a department whose goal is to recruit and retain educators of color. So we have a pipeline program that actually goes from our master's program right into Henrico, Hanover, Petersburg, Richmond, and Chesterfield. And so with those students, we try to make sure once they matriculate into the classroom, what's holding you back? You need a laptop coming to you.
We need to connect. We need to further connect. Yeah. So I'm sure you're aware of Dr. Carlton Good, right?
Yes. I heard you mention him when you were talking to Terry.
You know Mr. Good?
Of course.
Yeah, so have you heard of the Student Org Developing Men of Color?
Of course, that started in the multicultural office. Yep. Yeah, so absolutely.
You're looking at the president.
Oh, well,
we need to connect.
This guy, I tell you.
That's what I mean. We need to connect.
I
got
I like it.
No, Men of Color started in our office, and Carlton ended up getting it because essentially we just started rotating staff. Mr. Isom, who used to be over at Iwanzi Isom, rotated out, and Carlton was always co-helping him and facilitating stuff. So I'm happy. I've always been happy Carlton has kept it up because that was a really powerful group that we knew was very necessary.
We're just getting started.
Yeah.
We're still crawling. We're not even walking yet.
Yeah, because it's tough, right? Because again, you got to keep that momentum. The population shifts all the time. People's, again, OMSA has changed. Everything has changed.
So you're in the OMSA office?
No, so I work within the School of Education. So I left OMSA 3 years now. Yes, I left VCU in total about 3 years ago to work at a for-profit. Won't do that ever again. But finally made my way back to VCU about a year ago.
What did you hate about the for-profit?
For-profit because it's, in a 4-year traditional institution, state institution, the dollar signs are different, right? So you all represent money, but if you don't come to class, the state will still pour into that institution and it can still operate. With the for-profit, your Strayers, your University Phoenixes, the student becomes the number. If you're not there, then something has to get cut to replace the fact that you're not present. And so retention becomes a lot harder because the population is smaller. So with that, I'm having to retain 70% of whatever one program. That's a lot to ask of a person because you can have different reasons why you're not in school. So a lot of times, if you know the commercials, Queen Latifah is who's telling you in the middle of the night, you can be somebody. And you wake up like, yeah, I can. But with that comes 4-hour school blocks, which is different from your traditional 90. So then you're like, well, how am I supposed to go to work? And so you register and you get in the vibe and you're like, I need to make money. I can't go to school from 6 to 10 and then somehow try to find a job. It doesn't work. And so a lot of people drop out, or we have a lot of military folks that come in, which is amazing, but they just want to use their VA benefits. They're not looking to, I don't really want to get a job in IT. I won't do nothing today. So I enrolled in college. And so it becomes different. And then you see the stressors then go back on the people whose job, which is admissions, folks like me. So I oversaw, you can think about it like student affairs. So basically student retention and recruitment and then career services. So in addition to making sure you stay in school, I also had to help people find a job. But again, if you're trying to go to school in a 4-hour block and then turn around, you can't intern. It's virtually impossible. You're an adult. You probably have kids. So you just can't do it. So me trying to find your job is it's like a never-ending cycle.
So now you're in the School of Education.
At VCU.
And to me, what that sounds like, you'll probably need to encompass this for me, but it sounds like the school of, like VCU is a school for education, and you work in the school of education. So it sounds like you kind of have to do everything, right?
Not really, because that's a very specific major. So it's for folks who want to work
in the school of education.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay,
So the school of education, like the school of engineering, the
Looks
school
like
of
you
business.
class on Monday.
Yes.
He might have to, but it's okay. He caught so we're going to give him, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So no, the
I'm
school,
caught up.
the actual department, School of Education. So we have, countless amount of majors for people that, again, want to teach or work in an administrative capacity in either K-12 or higher ed.
So you have a lot of influence then over the next generation of educators, right? What it seems like. And do you come from like are you a professor there?
I'm a professor at the University of Richmond. I'm low-key a Jamaican, but I'm really Puerto Rican and Black, but I'm low-key also a Jamaican.
Yeah.
It's like three parts. It's all in there together.
It's a blend.
But yeah, low-key. So I'm an adjunct professor at the University of Richmond.
Okay.
I work at VCU, and then I own Unlocking RVA, which is an event production and promotion company. So those are the three kind of arms that I do.
What school are you in at UR?
So I'm in, I always say it backwards, rhetoric and communications. Okay. And so that's going to be your communications, people that, not necessarily English majors, but folks that you want to get into PR, things like that. Yeah. So I actually teach public speaking. So that's what I do. I do 2 sections of that twice a week.
And the name of the school is Rhetoric?
It's Rhetoric and Communications is a school. Yeah. Yeah, it's,
it's fancy. We had that at UR, did we?
I didn't hear about it.
You never had Rhetoric and Communication? Yeah,
we
RC.
went to grad school though.
No, got you, yeah. But Rhetoric and
wild.
Communications. And so, yeah, but again, what major were you guys?
HR.
So I mean, would you have really known about Rhetoric and Communications? Because you wouldn't have had to do elective courses because you were in a master's.
I felt like we learned about other schools on campus. Though.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know how long. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I don't know how long that department. No, I just don't. I mean, I've been teaching there for 2 years now, but I don't know I should probably be helpful for me.
So you were there. So you were recruited there then when Ronald Crutchfield was the president?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Small world. I did not realize that.
Yeah.
So as a person who went to VCU, and I don't know this answer, so it's not a loaded question. I would assume VCU has become more diverse since you were a student. Is that fair to say?
I think it's fair to say. I think the recruitment, has definitely become more robust, and opportunities for our Black and brown folks have definitely increased. And the same thing, I don't really know the numbers. I haven't really checked them in so long because, to your point, while I have it's really niche in terms of, what we do. Like, I'm extremely focused on the folks in the School of Ed who are of color and making sure that pipeline. So that pipeline is small in and of itself. Just because, to kind of go back to the question you asked me, no, I wasn't groomed to be an educator. I have family who, just 3 of them. I have a aunt who is a principal, another cousin who was a principal, and then an uncle who taught ESL. But those were like afterthoughts. They didn't go to school for that. Neither did I. I went to school to work in education administration. Teaching became a way that I knew I could affect and create change from the inside out. So I need to know what you're experiencing in the classroom so that I can create programs within my other departments that can support what you're going through or what you're not seeing. Because essentially a lot of times that's a flow. Most people don't come from K-12 and try to teach in higher ed because the parameters are different. Just like I would never in a million years go from higher ed down to K-12. One, because I would have to go back to school and I would have to get recertified. I don't do standardized tests. But so it's very difficult. So you have to groom the person that, you have to get people to see, hey, you should consider teaching this course, which is how public speaking came about University of Richmond, because as you all probably experienced, it's high level and lack of professors of color there. And so trying to create that change is one reason. So when I do stuff in the classroom, it's very intentional. I think I've only had like 1 non-Black or brown speaker come in. And I don't say anything. I don't tell you that's what I'm doing. You'll get it eventually.
Do the students pick up?
Some of them do, some of them don't. It doesn't matter if you do or don't. Because again, I'm not the in-your-face person. I do stuff and I just do it. If you pick up on it, great. But it'll hit you at one point. At some point, you'll figure out.
So that's where I wanted to go.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out if the school appears more diverse, do you think that we reach those types of outcomes because someone decided to be intentional? And it sounds like, at least in your sphere of influence, you're electing to be as intentional as possible.
Yeah.
Yet subtle though.
Yeah. Because people don't like when you tell them they have to change. So you have to create that environment to where they feel like a safe space and where they feel like it's something natural. So to my students, I'm just teaching a class and there's the person coming in and, oh, okay, he's Black, but you're not thinking about it in that level until later you're like, you know what? And then you're like, oh, and then now again, unintentionally, you begin to create change. It's the same thing that I do with any of our, when I was in OMSA, whenever I had you guys come in from Black Caucus or SGA, whatever those things, I could tell you all day what to do, but you're not going to do it. So I have to create circumstances where other people, I'll give you a great example of what students do. I could tell you all day that you should do an internship. You should probably find part-time jobs or connect, whatever. Spike Lee comes in and tells you how to be a filmmaker and tells you the same thing I just told you. I had to pay that man $30,000 for him to come and tell Demi, as a matter of fact. I never forget, Demi came up and asked a question about how he could get into acting, all that stuff, things we had always told him. But Spike Lee told him, he was like, Mr. Lee, you right. And I'm like, Demi, I know that someone just told you that last week. But sometimes it takes somebody else to come in. And again, it cost me $30,000, but it's okay. It is okay. So you have to kind of pull different pieces in to make people feel like, oh, that's cool. Same thing. Your parents tell you something, whatever, mom.
So you don't, this is interesting. So you're not frustrated by the fact that it takes bringing in another asset, whether it be a professor or a film producer. You're more focused on the outcome for the student.
Because, again, that's just the nature of humans, right? We don't like for someone to tell us what to do. It has to seem cool. That's why I use the parent analogy. We all been there. Our parents told us don't do something. We like, whatever, you just old, you're whack, this and the third. But then someone cool, a mentor or uncle or a cousin, and we like, or a friend, and we like, you're right, man. And your mama's sitting there like, I just told this last week. You know what I'm saying? But it took somebody else from a perspective who you didn't look at this like authoritative figure to tell you, nah, it's okay. No, you should be doing that.
Wow. What would be the one or few things you change, not specific to VCU, but just at the higher education institution in general? What would be the one thing, if you had full autonomy, like all control, no roadblocks at all, what would be the few things you would change to, one, increase the minority participation in extracurricular activities? And I asked that question specifically because I went to VCU and the only thing I did was Black Caucus and I just did it for my resume. So how would you increase minority participation in extracurricular activities? And then two, from an actual learning and certification perspective, what would you do to better increase the success rate of minorities to graduate? What are some of the programs or initiatives that if you had the ability to roll out, what would you do to kind of help push us along to successful graduation?
So go to your first question. Let me ask you a question back before I answer. Why didn't you participate in what made you not feel like?
To be honest with you, two things. Okay. First thing, I didn't see the value in it.
Okay.
I didn't, and looking at me now, you probably would assume I probably was way more active in college and even in high school extracurricular, but I was not. I didn't see the value in it, one. Two, when it came down to things like fraternities, for example, that always had they left a bad taste in my mouth, right? And I think I always looked at the individuals who were in the programs and the organizations and not the organization as a whole.
Got it.
So I like to be different and distant, and I didn't want to sign myself up for an organization that, based on the colors that I wear, you already have a preconceived notion about who I am just because I'm affiliated with some type of organization. So those are the reasons why I didn't want to get involved with it, because fraternities, one, I don't want you to think I'm whatever because I'm whatever. I don't want to be an SGA because I'm interested in it, one. And then two, I don't want you to think I'm into politics or I want to follow a political route.
So you want to be cool.
not so much cool.
Yes, you did. You wanted to be cool. You wanted to be cool breeze.
Cool.
You was that cool, quiet dude, weren't you?
I was always quiet, but I didn't see the value in it. And I didn't want any labels attached to me because I always thought that, for example, for fraternities, I'm a black man first, right? So I don't want to put on purple and gold and you just assume I'm a certain kind of person because I wear purple and gold. It's on my license plate. Absolutely. Right? So that thing it always kind of, I shunned away from it because we already have enough labels. I'm already a black man. It's already tough growing up. Like, why do I need to have something else attached to me to make me feel validated or invalidated? Why do I need to have, how is this going to help me? Because my mama got to eat. Like, is this going to help me? I'm in school trying to figure out how to pay his bill, what I'm going to do after I graduate. I have no idea, no direction. I'm literally in school in a whirlwind. How is this going to help me get to the other side?
So then what made you begin getting, I have a purpose to this. What is the reason why you started doing Men of Color?
I saw the impact that it made, especially with kids. Like I remember, I wasn't necessarily, it's funny now because I remember what my perspective for joining was when I first joined, as opposed to now that I'm, running the organization with my team. And it's a lot different now because I have to account for something bigger than just myself, right? But I was so compelled to mentor kids in the community. Chris and I had conversations about it. Donald and I had conversations about it. And I felt like I wanted to change the world, like on a huge scale. And Chris told me, he was like, you need to do it with one kid first. So I was like, all right, let me see what's going on. And plus I had already been exposed to the organization before even joining college because I knew Mr. Good. And then, I knew the founders of the organization, one of which was my older brother.
Who's your older brother?
Muhammad. Yeah. So, Mo, Hazem, Jalen, all those guys. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it. I really wanted to just make an impact. Like, so I remember going to meet the kids at Binford. And first I remember like walking around the school, cause I've never been to a Richmond school, like a Richmond City school. And I was just like, yeah. So the schools that you're familiar with the schools from where I'm from.
Sure.
Right? Yeah. And there's so much like the school, the middle school that I went to compared to Binford is like, it's like a campus. You know what I mean? So, and then I met the kids and I was like, okay, I understand what he said about, affecting one person's life before you can affect, thousands or millions or whatever you want to do. So, but impact was pretty much it. To make this long-winded answer short.
No, you're fine.
Impact.
No, you're helping my point because that's the difference, right? So I can't create change that can't happen. So if I were to meet you when you was an undergrad and I saw that demeanor, first I would have asked you what you want to be when you grow up because that's the purpose of student organizations is really grooming what you want to be. So the reason why I was an APB, the reason why I was an SGA, the reason why I was a graduate assistant for APB was because I realized I liked working in that environment and I liked at planning. So it worked for my personality. You realize your impact that you're making, you realize that early, right? But then it takes someone like you to come in and also direct him and guide him based off your feedback and what you've experienced. And that's the magic wand.
It's funny because the perspective that I always take is big picture, right? Yeah. And he told me, go small. And what happened is from mentoring that one kid, I'm now in a position to affect more kids, right? And then hopefully from what I'm learning from this, I can take to another organization or another business or company and affect more people, right?
So these are the conversations that have to happen, right? But you didn't have anyone that was a senior or you didn't have me telling you that what you can do. Whereas now you blessedly got him early enough to where he's actually can actively do the things that you can offer him.
You're 100% correct. And this is why we have this podcast, have this kind of conversation. One of the things that I think was missing with me at VCU, one, I went to Richmond public schools, right? So it's like it's about survival.
13th grade.
It's about survival, bro. Like Richmond public schools, like it's survival. Like you literally learn the game. You know what I'm saying? You learn the game of life while you were in school. And I think a lot of things that we were exposed to, I mean, we had to go through metal detectors every morning.
Yeah.
And like if it rained outside, you didn't go through the metal detectors. So in class, they would come and interrupt the teacher to shake you down. Like everybody go in the hallway, line up, they pet you down, and other security guards in the classroom run through your bags. It was like that. So when I got to college, it was a different level of survival, right? It was kind of like not so. It was kind of free, right?
It wasn't as rigid.
It wasn't as rigid, and the problem with what high school was that in my school and from K through 12. I'm a quite relatively mild-mannered person. So I didn't get challenged academically or, extracurricular because I was just a good kid. Like I can get away with stuff because I just didn't cause a lot of trouble. When I got to VCU, it was a shock for me going from a school system that was 98, 99% black to the only time I saw black people on campus at VCU was in the dorms. When I went in class, it was very few of us, right? So kind of that whirlwind of just, what am I doing here? What's my place? Where are these resources? Yes, I knew by the time I graduated, I knew about the multicultural office and I joined Black Caucus and things like that. But that took a good friend of mine, Ebony Glenn, to convince me to even do that, right? But I can see how people can get lost because it's an adjustment. And I don't think that every K through 12 school system prepares people for.
No, K-12 doesn't prepare you for college, period. Yeah. To be quite honest. I mean, you go through life and you're very structured and then all of a sudden you get dumped into this pool and it's like, wait, I gotta get up on my own? Like no one's you just gonna fail me? You're not gonna, and I think that's the wand that I would wave would be for educators, whether you're on the administrative side or in the classroom, is to be, allow grace, asking questions, really, which is tough because if you have a full load, you might have 5 or 6 classes. Who has time for that? Because you guys seen it at VCU, 100 level class can have 300 people in it. So you don't always have that ability to connect, but it's about allowing your students to know that they can if they want to, right? But then when you're at a school, when you add that extra layer of being at a PWI, at a predominantly white institution, Greek life comes in play. Definitely for when I was in school, because you're trying to find that culture that you doesn't naturally appear. So when you see people in their colors and their Greek letters, it's like, oh, they go to black people right there. And then I'm just going to slide in with them and make it work. And it doesn't work for everyone. I was just like you. I'm like, nah, I'm good. Y'all crazy. Because when I was in school, again, it was trying to be as hard, air quote, as union, as state. And I'm just like, I know who I am. I don't need to go that hard to compete to make the HBCU feel like I'm validated because I'm good. So I'm a creator. So I created spaces that maybe for APB wasn't all black, but then with myself and Bub and everything we did. I feel bad. I don't even know how we got away with it, to be honest with you, because we were not thinking about the larger population at all. Every event we did was very much geared to us. APB, I'm sorry, yes, the Activities Programming Board.
Gotcha.
Is what myself, and I was never president of the programming board. I was only over a committee. So myself and Bub, I can't remember what it was called, but comedy shows, concerts, the Commons parties, the infamous Commons parties that unfortunately you will never be able to experience.
Bro. I don't know.
So sorry. Yeah, well, because they changed the floor in the Commons. So when they did that, when it gets hot, the floor sweats and everyone you see people up and then you don't see them anymore. Why? Because the floor got wet. It was bad decision. So we had to stop doing the Commons parties. Eventually, oddly enough, the Kappas started doing parties in Lyric. We was on the MCV campus, but then they remodeled Lyric, and there is no space to appropriately.
I don't know.
But yeah, you missed a great era.
Throwback VCU.
The Commons parties were great, but again, those are things that we did to create our own. If someone were you went to a PWI? No, I went to HBCU in my mind because I created the culture that I wanted to see, which has just been always who Faith is. I've always been that person.
Is that the foundation for Unlocking RVA?
Yes. Pretty much everything I did at VCU, it flowed right into Unlocking, because essentially at VCU, again, I'm doing all the cool stuff, right? It's like, well, how did you do that? How did you learn it? And I'm just like, I don't understand what you mean. Or I say, because I'm chair of, or I'm a part of, or I work in. So I'm going to position myself to where I can do this cool stuff. And so when I graduated, it's funny. So people that are from Richmond, it's very crazy for them to see what we have now, what we can experience now. Because if you talk to anyone 10 years ago, Richmond was the most boringest place on the planet, right? But at VCU, I was in a bubble. So Richmond itself to me was amazing because my bubble went from GRC, so Main Street, to the Siegel Center, to Broad. Like that was
Sure.
Richmond was the bomb, okay? Yeah. Although I missed out on a lot of like staples. Like I wish I could have been to Ivory's. I wasn't old enough. Wish I could have gotten to After 6. Wasn't old enough. Yeah. So I missed a lot of different things, but there was 10 years where no one understood how Richmond was so fun, but it was because my friends and I were willing to do different things that weren't club nights. And so Unlocking was born out of people saying, well, how did y'all find out about so-and-so? And I'm just like, what do you mean? Like I just went to, but I realized people hate to read and people just want to show up for things. They don't want to have to think about the next cool thing. They want you just to show them, which is why Instagram and Facebook and things like that work. Because you can just log in and be like,
I want to do that.
I'm gonna go do that, and you're done, right? But back then there was no Instagram. You had to just know, and I was the person that always knew because I chose to know. I chose to go out and figure things out.
Do you think we have to continue to create those spaces? Like clearly you're creating those spaces, and you've seen. I mean, I've seen some of your events, at least from a social media perspective, just because I don't live here anymore. But like, I've seen them; they're very well attended. So like. Do you think we need to continue to create those types of spaces outside of, the Dr. Wilkerson's bubble?
No, I mean, absolutely. And it's happening. I mean, people are constantly curating and creating things on a daily basis, but it definitely has to happen because, again, you can either complain about it, move, or create what you want to see. And again, there's intentionality by what I do at Unlocking. Whenever you come into any of my events, everything in that space, in that moment is bookable. You see a DJ, you can book that DJ. You in a space, you can book this space. You see that food truck, you can have that food truck. Even down, I have brunch tomorrow. We have Studio 23 coming to do screen prints. You can book that mobile. You can book whatever you want. So I'm also showing you the things that you can then curate and do for something that you might want to do yourself. And again, it's that unspoken things that I'm doing. You don't even notice that I'm doing it. Like you walk into space and you might not notice everybody in there is Black. You might not notice all the vendors are Black, but it's intentional. I'm not saying I don't hire anyone not of color, but I'm choosing specifically certain things that I want to happen and be present in that space. And again, you might not get it today, you might not get it tomorrow, but I don't have to rah in a camera or whatever for me to make my impact. And that's the difference between me and someone else. Your passion could be protesting. My passion is I'm gonna put the money and I'm gonna show you what I can do with it my way. And that's just kind of how I've always flown through life.
Yeah. I met my wife at VCU and I didn't appreciate it then, but I talk about it now, which is one of the reasons I'm so glad you agreed to be on the podcast is you and Miss Walker would, the conversations I would have with y'all, even when I didn't make the best decisions, I felt the weight of that poor decision. But you did it in a way that it's like, you're better than this, better than whatever that decision is. And I think I can say this now just because I'm older, number one, but I think students need those types of examples on campus. Like in many ways, like I feel like my mom's always gonna be my mom. Mom Dukes is always mom. But like at least for my short amount of time at VCU, I could count on you and Miss Walker to hold me accountable and be that, I don't want to say mother figure because it's beyond that.
No, it's aunties. Aunties are important. Uncles are important. Those are the people that I said before. You listen to them. They're the cool ones. Yeah. And again, and it worked between me and Miss Walker because she was, I think she's in her 50s now. So, that difference. So I'm just like late 20s and she's like already in her 40s. So we gave you a different perspective. So she's giving you older auntie. I'm giving you like, I know what really happened. So it's okay. Because think about all the stuff that you go through. Think about everything that you're going through as someone in your 18, 19. That's a lot that we don't really consider. It's a lot of stress, a lot of responsibility. You're going through heartbreak. You trying to work. You trying to figure out how mom's going to eat. You got, people have real stress that we don't really, I think about at 19, 20. It's real stress. Like, dang, and then there's like this time clock. Like, yo, all right, I'm graduating on this day, and by this time I'm supposed to have a job. I'm supposed to know where I'm living. If I go home, my mama might be wet. Like you're trying to figure out all this stuff, right? And then still be cool, still have a job. Maybe you got somebody pregnant. There's a lot of stuff that happens.
No, speak on it.
You know what I'm saying? And you trying to balance all this because, and I heard you talking to Terry earlier, like, you're not telling your son college is it, right? But everyone sitting here comes from the generation of, no, you going to school? What you mean? That's what our parents, because it's all you know. That's what your parents know. But now these new kids, I can't wait to see how they grow and develop and how they rule the world, because college is not the end all be all. But there was no one there because our parents didn't entrepreneur. Those are the broke people. Those are the, entrepreneurs. Oh, that's Uncle Bernie and them that done ran through all the money and don't never have nothing. But now it's just different. There's different tools available for these kids now, but it's a lot of weight.
So how does higher ed adjust to the shift?
Because there's always going to be fields that require, right?
Yeah.
You to have it. So Terry ain't about to operate or do nothing on nobody without that MD behind him. You know what I'm saying? I can't teach without having that EDD behind me. You know what I'm saying? Or that PhD behind me. So there's always going to be a clientele for college.
Understood.
1,000%. I think the biggest hit might be how much they charge for it. I think at some point you'll start, hopefully, prayerfully, seeing a reduction in that. But at the end of the day, there's large infrastructures that have to be supported. So even when we get mad at, even when when y'all's group came in, it was, the tuition went up, but y'all got a lot. Y'all had a full new dining hall. Y'all had a whole new gym. We ain't had none of that. Okay, we ate at Hibbs. I don't know if y'all knew that. I ate at Hibbs first floor. Okay, that was our cafeteria. We ain't have shaper. Y'all have crab. Y'all got crab legs.
They got 3D printers that they make phone cases,
sushi bars and stuff. We didn't have any of that. So, and our tuition reflected that. Okay, but then when y'all came in, again, the cost has to go up for the stuff that y'all require for being somewhere 4 years, every single day of your life, where you're living, and you have a standard. If you're paying this much, there's a standard that comes with that cost.
I love the fact that you talked about the VCU you had, while it still had amazing moments, commons, parties, lyrics. That was before my time. But while you still had those moments, there's also certain access or advantages that you didn't have.
Yeah.
And you can appreciate how these things have gotten better with time. I think one of the things I leave you with is your intentionality in the things that you do, Faith, is contagious. And whether people give you your flowers enough while you're still here, we will. Like, the fact that you wear multiple hats as an educator, as a faculty member, and an entrepreneur, that kind of impact on other people is going to be phenomenal. And so I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, continue doing that, because I know I don't have a daughter yet. I do want one. But I would hope when we send her off to school, if she chooses to go to school, that she has the Miss Walkers in there. Faith Wilkerson's there. Dr. Faith Wilkerson's there. So I just want to tell you, keep making that impact. People are watching, whether they say it or not.
Yeah. Oh no, that much I do. I'm fully aware of, rather, that they are watching and they are acting accordingly. And so that makes the job a little bit tougher. But yeah, all I can do is continue to be who I am.
Yeah. This is beautiful.
Well, very much so.
Now I know you would have been active if we connected you with Faith.
I don't think so. I think he still would have been the cool kid. Because I didn't really bother the cool kids too much. He reminds me of Tay a little bit. I wouldn't have really bothered you too tough. I'd be like, all right, you cool, Tyler. You stay over there.
I always wanted to ask you, why is it that he was so attracted to the frat? Y'all cool, y'all were mad cool.
I never would have met him if he didn't move into my homeboys.
I was gonna say, after she mentioned, you know what I mean? By the way, the way you navigated,
because I knew, because again, you being so active, that's why I wanted you to say it out loud, because there's two stark differences, and that's personality. You can't. I can't teach that. That
answers that question.
That passion, I can't teach that. But what I can teach is instilling in someone else. Yo, say that. Because how many times have you not done something just because someone didn't tell you could do it? I didn't know I could be an entrepreneur because no one told me I could. I fell into it because I am basically around a lot of people who we go out and we throw hustles at the wall and see what happens, and that's how we did it. But I'm not an educator because someone told me I could be. It was, I went to school and was like, hey, how do I do what you do? Because fun fact, I was supposed to be Oprah. Really, if you think about it, I should have been like an MTV. Let me go back. I wanted to be on Teen Summit. Don't know if you know that show.
Nope.
It was a show on BET. It was like a teenage show. Everybody on there went to Howard. I had actually got into Howard. My mama cried because of the distance between DC and Newport News. So that's actually how I ended up at VCU, because that was our middle ground. But everyone on that show that was hosting went to Howard. So that was my stepping stone. But then I got to VCU and I was like, oh, this place is all right. But then I started getting more active and I was just like, this seems like it might seem a little bit more stable. So how do I do what you do? I don't know what I thought they were, some kind of mystical advisors that just sign off on checks. I didn't look at them as humans that probably went to school for something until I just finally, my advisor was like, have you considered? And that was the first time anyone asked me, have you considered? Because I walked in like, nah, I'm about to be on BET. What you talking about? Like that's how I came into the world. So that's the best thing you can do is tell someone the impact, or tell someone, hey, sometimes people hate unsolicited advice, but then one day you sit down and you like, somebody told me this once. Yeah. And let me try it out.
I'm glad you considered. I am the beneficiary of having you on campus, and I'm sure there's going to be multiple people after me and since me that would say the same thing. So thank you, Faye.
You're welcome.
Yes.
You're welcome so much. I'll send you a bill later.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Somebody Some podcast. We encourage you to share this episode with a friend. And remember, on this path called life, you are not alone. Thank you for watching. Until next time.
She liked the way that I finessed it.